Good morning. My name is Maureen Chung. Welcome to Daily Devotional of October the 13th. The passage is Psalm chapter 90, verse 1 to 17. And the title is Count Down Our Days. And now Moses lived to 120 years. The first 40 years were spent in the Egyptian palace, brought up as a royal and educated with the sons of the Pharaoh. Now he learned languages, agriculture, architecture, engineering, science, astronomy, mathematics, military warfare, government and politics, and so on. But he murdered an Egyptian as he stood up for an Israelite, and he ended up fleeing the country. The next 40 years were spent in the desert, shepherding a flock of sheep that belonged to his father-in-law. He had no property of his own. He so-called wasted his education and so-called lost his connection. But he got to know the desert like the palm of his hands. He got to meet God in the desert. The last 40 years of his life were spent doing what God had prepared him to do all along, leading millions of Israelites and hangers-on out of Egypt en route to the promised land, Canaan, soon to be the territory of their re-established country, Israel. Moses reflects on the meaning of life as he writes this psalm. It is a prayer of Moses, the man of God. The Bible says, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You turn people back to dust, saying, Return to dust, you mortals. 1,000 years in your sight are like a day that has just gone by, or like a watch in the night. Yet you sweep people away in the sleep of death. They are like the new grass of the morning. In the morning it springs up new, but by evening it is dry and withered. We are consumed by your anger and terrified by your indignation. You have set our iniquities before you, our secret sins in the light of your presence. All our days pass away under your wrath. We finish our years with a moan. Our days may come to 70 years or 80 if our strength endures. Yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass, and we fly away. If only we knew the power of your anger, your wrath is as great as the fear that is your due. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Relent, Lord, how long will it be? Have compassion on your servants. Satisfy us in the morning with your unfailing love, that we may sing for joy and be glad all our days. Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us, for as many years as we have seen trouble. May your deeds be shown to your servants, your splendor to their children. May the favor of the Lord, our God, rest on us, establish the work of our hands for us. Yes, establish the work of our hands. We can dissect the psalm into 3 sections. A, verse 1 to 6, God is eternal. B, verse 7 to 11, the wrath of God. And C, verse 12 to 17, the mercy of God. In the first section, the contrast is obvious. God is eternal, but human life is short and fleeting. Moses opens his prayer with these words, Lord, you have been our dwelling place throughout all generations. The Hebrew word for dwelling place here is the same as the word refuge. In Deuteronomy chapter 33, verse 27, we read, The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He will drive out your enemies before you, saying, Destroy them. God is not our temporary refuge, but he upholds his people with everlasting arms throughout all generations. Enemies cannot overcome us, for they will be destroyed. The eternity of God is in contrast to the existence of the earth. God exists even before the world was made. From everlasting way back in time to everlasting way into the future, God is God. But the dust in the desert reminds Moses of God's judgment on mankind since the fall of Adam and Eve. Back then, God said, "By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return." Genesis chapter 3, verse 19. Death is a reality. All sinners will return to dust in death. Indeed, over the 40 years of the desert sojourn, a whole generation of Israelites died and never saw the promised land. To the eternal God, 1,000 earth years are just like a day, or even shorter, like a watch at night. There are 3 watches per night: sundown to 10 p.m., and then 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., and then 2 a.m. to sunrise. A watch is about 4 hours. But God doesn't measure time like we humans do. After a rainstorm, new grass spring up in the morning, even in the desert, but they cannot survive the scorching, unfiltered sun. So is the shortness of human life symbolized. Count it lucky if we live to the age of 70 or 80 years. We are not God. The second section, from verse 7 to 11, speaks of the wrath of God. Death came through Adam and Eve, resulting from sin, and we all have sin's DNA. Our iniquities and secret sins are exposed in the light of God's presence. After death, judgment comes, and no one can hide from God. Hence, mankind should fear or revere him. Besides the contrast between God's eternality and man's short life, another contrast is seen in verse 10. Our days may come to 70 years or 80. If our strength endures, yet the best of them are but trouble and sorrow, for they quickly pass and we fly away. The phrase, "the best of them," refers to the best years in our lives. All our pride in our strength, riches, honor, and achievements amount to only trouble and emptiness. Human success cannot be compared with God's wondrous creation and sovereign providence. All our learnings and accolades come to naught in death, for our legacy will not be remembered by later generations. All that we can possess forever is the compassion of God, whose unfailing love has made us joyful and glad. Verse 13 to 14. The last section from verse 12 to 17 speaks of the mercy of God. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Verse 12. If you know how to count down your days on earth, that may lead you to godly wisdom. Proverbs chapter 9 verse 10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." James chapter 4 verse 15 teaches us to think this way: if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. In brief, remember our shortness of life and God's eternality, get to know God and revere him and appreciate life as a gift from God. Then we may gain wisdom. Death will cut short our work and achievements, but if we work with God, he will establish the work of our hands. Then indeed, his deeds will be shown to us, his servants, and his splendor to our children. Verse 16 to 17. What have I learned? A. Count down our days. Consider what has eternal value. B. Adjust our value system. Whatever we pursue, that is our God. and look at ourselves and others as God's beloved. We are sinners redeemed for a life everlasting with Him. Therefore, we hope to work together with enduring effects for God's pleasure. This too is our worship. Worship is not a noun only, it is also a verb. It is in all that you do. Thank you for joining me, and may God bless you all, and see you tomorrow. Please like and subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon to get new video updates. Thank you.